Welcome back to the Iron Sights podcast. We are ready. We're locked and loaded. I've got Tamara DuMont in the house. She's with Girl in a Gun, and we're going to talk a lot about Girl in a Gun. But I just want to start this thing by thanking you because we talked, I don't know, it was about 5 months ago.
Yeah, 5-6 months ago, yeah.
Five months ago, I got put together with Robin Sandoval, who is the CEO and president of Girl in a Gun, by a very good friend of mine named Christina. She said, you should really talk to these folks. Have you heard about them? I go, actually, I have heard about Girl in a Gun, but I really don't know that much about it. I spent a lot of time in the firearms industry space, talked with a lot of first responders or law enforcement officers, a lot of shooters, shooting instructors, and it's very male dominated.
Yes.
And a lot of dudes talk to other dudes, and it just ends up that I end up talking to a lot of dudes.
Exactly.
So when I started to get some information on it, I was super impressed with some of the things I'd heard about the organization, and I want to talk about that. But before we do that, I want to find out a little bit more about you because we basically had about a 10 to 15 minute phone call that 5 months ago. And then there were schedule conflicts and we finally did it. So we're here.
Yeah.
So thank you for making the drive in. You're a native Californian.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I made the drive down sort of from the northeast area of the state. And here you are. So I just want to find out a little bit more about you. You've given me some insight, so I have a little bit, but I want the audience to know who we're talking to. And then I have lots of questions for you.
Oh, okay.
So you can start and finish wherever you want.
Well, my life's actually started in Southern California, like many Native Californians. I don't talk much about that portion of my life because my parents were divorced before I was born. Shortly after my mother found out that she was pregnant with me, my father and she divorced, and he moved up to Grass Valley. My mother was left with my two older brothers and no husband, and met another husband. That was back in the 70s before we had Spokio or any way to background check someone. And he ended up not being the best guy on the face of the earth. Okay. And so he ended up actually killing my mother after beating her senselessly for many years. So most of my childhood, from the time I was born to the time I was 8 years old, when he finally finished the deed, was watching my mother being stripped of her dignity. So after my mother passed away, my father jumped back into the scene and took us all up to Grass Valley, where he was in law enforcement up there. And of course, he felt very bad that he didn't realize what was going on, even though we went to visit him during the summers. But, you know, when you're in a domestic violence situation, whether you're the actual victim or you're one of the children, it's not something you talk about. It's just kind of an unwritten rule that you just don't talk about it. So we didn't tell anybody. So I think my dad's first order of business was to not allow us to be victims, right? And especially me as his daughter. And incidentally, my dad and my stepmother adopted the only child of my mother and my stepfather, so my little sister. And
wow,
yeah, it was incredible. It was a wild childhood. So so my dad he was very into guns. He liked guns a lot, and of course, a gun was the tool that was used to kill my mother. And so my dad helped us to realize that guns are a tool, and it was the man that did the deed, right? It was the human that did the deed, not the gun. So that was the environment that I was raised in. And so I wasn't afraid of guns because we handled them a lot. We shot them a lot. I was shooting pistols by the time I was 8. My dad had a thing where he would, when we would get home from school, if he was working the graveyard shift, so then he was awake when we got home, he'd lay guns out and he'd have us field strip them and put them back together again. Nice. And once we were able to do that, we were allowed to shoot it, right? We would do his little things with shotguns. We each had access to a 410 shotgun for security. Because of course, my stepfather was still alive, okay? And we didn't know when he was going to get out of prison. And so we had to be prepared because it was very easy for him to find where we were because we had restraining orders against him. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, restraining orders tell you exactly where
Public,
not
yep.
to be.
Right.
It's just not, it's not an exact science.
It's not witness protection.
No, it's not. So we lived way out in the middle of nowhere where help was not readily available.
Gotcha.
So from a very young age, I knew that I was my own first responder. So we learned how to shoot 410s very, very well. My dad had this thing where we would go on maneuvers and we would, learn how to shoot prone, learn how to do all kinds of crazy business that I kind of just thought everybody did that, right? It was just such a regular thing.
How old are you at this time?
Between 8 and 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very formal years.
Yeah. So, and in the town, so now I'm in Grass Valley, California, when it was pretty redneck back there.
It was very rural.
It was very rural, very, so even the people that were on, it's hard for people to remember back in those early years when people may have been a Republican or a Democrat, but they weren't divided on everything.
Mm-hmm.
You still went grocery shopping together without yelling at each other. And, and everybody out there really understood that we needed our Second Amendment rights, right? And so the differences between us were different. So they were smaller, I want to say.
I gotcha.
Right? So
weren't sweating so much small stuff.
Right,
Yep.
exactly. And everybody was for their individual rights and stuff like that. And even the left-leaning people, we called them hippies and we were rednecks, right? And the hippies had guns too, right? And so in school, we'd intermingle and we were all friends with them. And maybe the adults didn't kind of like each other, but the kids did, right?
It's invisible.
Yeah, it was invisible. And the teachers didn't talk about politics. So
I can remember those days well.
There was a day, right?
There was a day.
There was a day, and it just was a different world.
And I want to say something about that too, because I don't think it was taboo to do that. It was just, I'm not here to do that as a teacher or as an instructor was the attitude. Like, we are here to learn.
Yeah.
I'm here to be non-biased and put all the things out there for kids to make their own decisions.
Yeah.
It's very, very different now.
Yeah. And I actually remember one time in a speech class, we were talking about gun control. And my instructor was because the teachers knew about what happened, right?
Okay.
And so it's a big thing to have your mom killed that way, right?
I'm curious about that. What you just said right there was there special attention being paid to you? Like, were there programs or resources or anything like that? No, it was just like, it's in the file.
It's just in the file. And
then people, I'm sure, talked about it.
And also, so it was, my mother's death was actually in the news because her husband was the city controller of Pico Rivera, Whittier area.
Oh, okay.
Right? So he was
in the public eye.
He was in the public eye. And, some people tell me he was very, very well loved. Others tell me he wasn't. I don't really know. I don't know.
Right.
I was just a little girl, So, but anyway, I did know that my teachers knew because it's like she was surprised when I said to her, "Well, I'm not for gun control. I don't feel like it was the gun that killed my mother. I felt like it was the person that did that, and he had a history of being a very bad person that got swept under. If anything, my mother and my family was a victim of a lax judicial system.
Got it.
Right. Instead of it was a judicial system. I mean, we all want grace when we do something wrong, right? But there are some things that don't deserve grace, or the most graceful thing to do is to lock them up and never let them back. Yeah,
you said something earlier about we didn't know when he was going to get out of jail or prison, and my gut on that is like, why would somebody get out of prison for doing something like that? So
because it was considered I learned a lot as I grew up. I'm sorry, it's a long drive and I have dry throat.
It's okay.
So he got out in 8 years after killing my mother.
I'm stunned.
Okay, so he was in Chino, and he got out 8 years.
Wow. 8. Wow.
After 8 years.
Okay.
He was sentenced for more time. but was let out on for good behavior.
The irony in that just...
Well, there were no women to beat up.
Wow.
Yeah. The wonderful thing is that he did pass away, and we don't really know why. We weren't given that information. So I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I don't know why my throat is all dry.
It's okay.
So anyway, so that's that leg of the story.
Gotcha. So you're a young girl growing up with a dad who is
very pro-gun.
Very pro-gun. He's law enforcement, right? So he's acutely aware of the realities of the world that we live in.
Exactly.
Trying to teach you that those realities exist.
Yes.
That you should be concerned and have awareness, but not to be afraid.
Right.
And here's some things that you want to know or probably want to know about taking care of yourself as you grow up as a young girl and then obviously into a grown woman.
Well, and the interesting thing was too is that we had a very large house. I'm so sorry. Out in the middle of nowhere. And we had a lot of parties at our house. And my dad had a lot of friends in law enforcement. And he actually lived in fear that one of the children would pick up one of the guns out of the gun belt.
Yep.
Because they're hurt somebody.
Because they're accessible, yes.
Right. So I know that the modern idea is to teach the children to step away and get all of it. My dad was afraid that we would step away, being the knowing ones, we would step away and somebody else would pick up the gun and somebody would get hurt, right? So my dad did have a safe where he wanted, or a safe place where he wanted everybody to put the guns, but in case they didn't, I am so sorry. In case they didn't, he...
Maybe you're allergic to my microphone.
Could be. In case they didn't, he wanted us to unload and show Claire.
Got it.
Right? And not just unload and show Claire, bring him the bullets.
Okay.
So we did. Whenever that happened, right? I don't know that I would tell somebody to teach their children to do that in today's world. I think in today's world, that would be frowned upon. But in the time that we were, that was the best thing to be doing. And so that's what we did.
Got it.
Yeah, we unloaded, we showed Claire. And then we brought him either the magazine or most of the guys carried revolvers.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, it's a little bit of a different situation.
Yeah. So you're going to drop them and you're going to leave it open and you're going to bring those bullets to daddy.
Gotcha.
Right. And so that's what we did.
Okay. So you get this very early experience. And I got to say, that's the kind of experience that I was given as a child too. We were taught very much the same way. And I was introduced very early. By the time I was 10, I had my first rifle and there were boundaries. There were right and left parameters. There were very specific rules. And I always looked forward to, I was never scared. I never remember being fearful. Just I had a very healthy respect for what a firearm could do.
Reverence,
in terms of taking life, hunting and things like that. Like obviously there's some very obvious things there. And then, it's even then, back in when I was growing up, there was always an article on occasion of some child who'd gotten their hands on a unsecured firearm that was loaded and either hurt themselves or somebody else. And my parents, particularly my dad, was always very quick to go, to put it in front of us and let us know, like, hey, this is what happens. And this is why this is why you have to be safe. And this is why we don't do certain things and do other things. So that's very familiar to me. And I don't know that a lot of kids get that anymore. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just, in today's day and age, it seems to be there's a little bit of a larger level of disconnect, I think, between that and then also a much greater fear. And you were mentioning the lines of division there. Yeah. There's so much division there that I think it's created a major safety concern.
Right.
So much so that we put policies and laws in place that are supposedly there to protect people, yet it drives things further apart. Yeah. I don't want to get too far into that rabbit hole, but
because I have lots of opinions on that.
I'm sure you do. And so I think we're probably going to talk about those. So how does this evolve for you as you get older?
Okay, so I loved guns growing up. My dad had a best friend that owned a gun store, and so we would go into the gun store. I actually went probably to the gun store more than any of my brothers did. I just loved it. I loved the smell. I loved touching. I loved seeing. I loved hearing the men talk about the guns and knowing that it was kind of like a men's world and not for me.
Interesting.
But I kind of really enjoyed it. So I listened a lot and I dreamed a lot. And then, life kind of gets away from you. And I ended up getting married, and my husband and I told you my husband and I have 6 children together.
Yep.
And we raised them kind of in a very rural way. I moved down to the Lincoln, Newcastle area. And, we have 5 acres. We have little cows and chickens and a quarter-acre garden.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. All my children have grown up and moved away. But during that time, we ended up getting, because I homeschooled all of my children.
Okay.
So That's
interesting. You said life got away. Like, I don't think it got away. It sounds like you were busy.
busy. Yeah, it was crazy. So we, and then, we wanted to give them some work experience. So we started a little pony ride business, right? So for a short period of time, we were the largest pony party company in Northern California.
Okay.
It was really wild.
A lot of kids can very much relate to that.
Yes,
being to at least one of those in their life.
It was fun, but it was really labor intensive. And and what happened is I kind of wasn't really, I had guns at home, and I made sure that I knew how to use them and kept up, because every home should have a 410 shotgun, right? So we had that, and my husband has his shotgun, and we had a few pistols and stuff like that, but not the collection that I grew up with.
Okay.
It just wasn't a priority at the time.
Yep, sounds about right.
I was at an event, and I had my 6 little children and our 6 little ponies and our little petting zoo and all that. And it was one of the rare events that we did what we call pay as you play, where somebody pays you $5 and you give them a pony ride, $2 to get in the petting zoo. And we were getting cased, and I could tell we were getting cased, because the other thing that my dad was
For the cash.
Yeah, my dad was very particular about is watching your surroundings, right? And you watch for things that are out of ordinary. And just because I had all through my from the time I was 8 till the time I was I think I was 17 when my stepfather finally died, we had to keep our eyes up.
Gotcha.
And we had to know where we were and where the exits were and all that, this is what we call now situational awareness. Yeah.
It's a cliche term, but at the same time, it is very specific.
Yeah.
Yes, to what you just said.
So I have on fire situational awareness. I know what's going on, where the exits are. I still do. It's just a way of life, right? And so I'm watching around, I'm seeing these guys, and they're at a place for the situation. And so the Roseville police guy comes over, and I said, hey, I'm kind of concerned about these guys. He says, yeah, we are too. That's why we came over here. And they finally dealt with the whole thing, and which was kind of a long story. But finally, the Roseville PD guy comes over to me, and he says, Tammy, we can't always protect you. Okay, we can't always be here for you. And I said, I know, I know. But I don't know what else to do, because at that time, you couldn't just go get a CCW, right? He goes, well, I'm calling your sheriff. I'm calling your sheriff right now, and I'm going to tell him about you, and I'm going to tell him that you really need to have this. So I went and I took the class, and the sheriff told me who to take the class from, took the class, all that, got my CCW, and I've been a CCW carrier ever since, right? Yeah.
Okay.
And now, of course, it's much easier. So then that kind of was my gateway back into firearms, right? And of course,
the bug.
Yeah. Of course, my dad was so excited and went with me to help me pick out my first carry pistol. And
what was it?
Actually, you're gonna laugh. It was a.
I'm laughing already just because you said that. But.
It was a Versa Firestorm.
Okay.
Okay. And because at that time, remember, there weren't a whole lot there was no striker fires.
Different time.
Yeah. And I grew up in a Glock hating family. We didn't carry Glocks. I carry a Glock now. Glock is a very big sponsor of A Girl and a Gun.
Okay.
And so I actually own 2 Glocks.
Okay.
And so anyway, that was the gun that I carried for the longest time. And it served me very well.
Sure.
Incidentally, I I took that gun on a little father-daughter redneck trip up to Front Sight when Front Sight was still open.
Wow, we're going back, yeah.
Yeah, see, that's how long ago.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go up to Front Sight, and I go in there with my 380, right? Because I want to learn to use that gun, okay?
Makes sense. It's logical.
Yes, I wanted to be very good with that one because that's the one I was going to be protecting my family when we were out and about. And so they had this week-long pistol program. And so my dad and I go up there and we, and the guys get there and they greet me and they go, "You are not going to be able to shoot that gun." He goes, "You're going to have to use a Glock." And of course my dad goes, "My daughter will never shoot a Glock." Right. And so I said, "It's okay." I said, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to start out with this gun." He goes, and they're going, "No, it's too small. Your hands won't be able to handle it. All these reasons. I can't handle this." And I said, "Listen, I'll tell you what, if I can't use this gun, I'll rent a gun from you." I said, "But I would really like to use this gun because it's the only gun I have to protect my kids in this situation. It's the only gun I could find on the market that I could actually hide because I had even less real estate
to
hide a gun back then, right?" And so they said, "Okay." So long story short, it's this whole week thing that manifests itself to this man-on-man competition, okay? There's 2 other women in the class. They drop out after the first day. I'm gung-ho. A couple men drop out. We started with like 30 people, like 18 people end up to the last day, right? Man-on-man competition where, you shoot this, you shoot that, you shoot this, you shoot that. If you win, you go back to the end of the line, right? So we're going through. And the one thing about those little bursts of firestorms, if you don't keep them meticulously clean, they do jam.
Okay.
And so I had shot a lot of rounds that day. I get to the last round. It's me and this guy for first place, right? My gun stovepipes.
Oh, no.
I drop the mag, rack it out. Whoops. Rack it out, get excited. I get excited about this story. I rack it out and reload and get back on. I'm 2 seconds behind his last shot.
Oh, boy. So
I lost by 2 seconds. They gave me the award anyway.
Oh, nice.
Because that guy, turns out, was there for training for, that's when they first started the air marshals.
Okay, yep.
And he was an air marshal. And he looks at me and he goes, "I can't believe you almost beat me with that stupid little gun."
Right. That's outstanding story. And actually, it's an interesting story about you just going kind of back to Front Side. I was going to ask you about your experience, and you just went through the whole thing there.
Yeah.
It was an
that's some of my experience.
Interesting day, interesting times there.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So you go and you take this class. And now you've got kind of this, I assume, maybe a little bit of boosted confidence coming out of there.
Yeah.
Like you're a performer to some extent, right?
So then I start going to my local range. And there's just no women there, none whatsoever, right? And it's about time for my CCW to be redone. And my dad says, "Hey, there's this female instructor in Grass Valley. Maybe you want to try her right this time to do your CCW." I thought, well, that's a good idea. And I thought, maybe I could get to know some women. Although I was kind of hoping to get to know more women in the town that I lived in, but Grass Valley is an hour away from me. So, and every single time I'd go to the range, it was all men, right? And at the range, a pickup line is that a Glock?
Oh, God.
I know. Please stop, right? And so it wasn't a Glock. Didn't even look like a Glock. It was a burst of firestorm. Right. It doesn't even look like a Glock, okay? But so they, and the range safety officer would often say to me, "I've never seen you here before." It's like, come on, you guys. And then he'd always stand by me for the first few magazines, right? Like he didn't trust me. He wouldn't do that to anybody else. But I just figured, well, he just thought that I was the little woman and didn't know what I was doing, right?
I'm with you.
So I did go up and meet this instructor, and then she was involved with Girl and a Gun. And so I got involved. So I was in her chapter for 4 years. I drove an hour there and an hour back for all the meetings and all that. Then, I started exploring the idea of maybe getting a chapter closer my own town. And so then I went back to the some of the people that I knew more locally and hatched the idea. The facilitator up in Grass Valley helped me get everything going. And now I have my own chapter that meets in Lincoln at, we have 2 different ranges now because we had the outdoor range for a year and now other ranges are contacting me going, hey, Tamara, you think you might want to come and have some meetings at our place too, right? And so now another indoor range just picked us up and said, we really want you. So we're going to have our first meeting there next week.
All right. So you just covered a lot of ground and I have some questions here.
Okay.
So let's go back to, so you've had some experiences and now you're going out on your own, right? Trying to find more for yourself. And dad makes a recommendation. So you follow dad. Dad's been pretty spot on to this point. So that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
All right. So you go down there and then you have this experience at the range. And I don't think it's very different than a lot of women that go to ranges if they even go. And part of the reason they don't go is for what you just said.
It's not a female friendly environment.
It's male dominated. For a lot of reasons. It shouldn't matter, but it does. And because this is the type of thing we haven't even gotten into what happens at the gun counter yet. You have some experience there. So we're going to talk about that. But I think that for me, like when I think about Cece, you know, and her going to the range, that's her big hang up, right? Which is, however, she does have a girlfriend that she will go out quarterly to a local indoor range, which is not amazing. It's not awesome. And they will go and they will be relatively left alone because they're kind of regulars there. But it's not an intimidation factor. She's not intimidated by that.
Neither was I.
It's just annoying. And it's a turnoff and it's a barrier, both of entry and then of existence within those types of environments. And this is where obviously Girl and a Gun comes in and kind of what you're doing there. But there's some other things that I just mentioned, the gun counter thing. Can you talk a little bit about your experience? Because, you know, there and.
Well, I want to preface anything that I say saying that I don't think that men try to make women feel that way.
I'm glad you said
I think that they just don't know how to behave in the situation, and they don't want to admit that we're different, right? And I think our society makes us nervous about the differences, and at the same time makes us want to ignore the differences. You see what I'm saying?
It's an awkward situation.
It's an awkward situation. Yeah. And so I actually manage a gun store now. So and that came to being by me. I had gotten a job after all of my kids moved out because there's a lot of me and I didn't want to get too involved with my adult children's lives. So I got this job for the state of California that I wasn't very happy there.
Okay.
And so I thought, well, okay, I'm starting this new chapter with a Girl and a Gun. So I'm going to go to each of the gun stores and I'm going to say, oh, and hey, here's my resume. This is all the training that I've had. This is, you know, what I can offer you.
My experiences,
Yeah. And I dropped it off to every single gun store, okay? A lot of the gun stores went, oh, great, for Girl and a Gun. Yeah, okay, thanks. And they threw my... I could literally see them throw my application away, right? And I just went, okay, that's fine, right? So I'm about headed home and I'm looking at my list and there's one more gun store to go to. And I thought, I have to do it. This was my goal. I'm going to do it. I walk in there and the owner of the gun store is there and his name is Ed. And Ed, I show him my resume. I show him about Girl and a Gun. And he's asking me all these questions. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, this guy doesn't
We're just going through the motions.
This is another thing. And I said, hey, great. Have a wonderful, wonderful life.
Okay.
See you later. Right. 2 weeks later, he calls me and he says, hey, I want to talk to you about some of the stuff that was on your resume. And I meet back up with him and he's like going, yeah, we want this and we want that. You can offer us this and you can offer us this. And what about that? And it was like so exciting, you know, that, so anyway, I'm there now and it's a lot of fun.
How long you been there?
A year and a half.
Okay.
And it's great because now more and more women are coming in and they like talking to me and because I can show them, you know, what works. And I also have all the statistics from a Girl and a Gun that say these are the guns that most women find comfortable. These are the other guns that women do carry. And then maybe, you could try this one or try that one. And, and so I can offer them not only my own personal experience, but here's like these statistics from a girl and a gun. Like we just had national conference. And when we do gear check, so we gear check every single woman that comes in. We make sure that their gear's all working properly, that their holsters fit them properly.
Right.
and we log all that information in so that we can let everybody know what it is. What's the number one gun that women are carrying?
Or what's the number one issue that we see come up?
Yeah.
God, this is so smart. So I'm just going back to your experience, going to the different gun shops, right?
Okay.
And there's an individual that sees this as an opportunity.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So I don't have the statistic, but of the gun ownership in America, and obviously that's a lot. I don't think we're ever going to know what that number is. Do we know a percentage of gun owners in America, or maybe even in this state, maybe it's even more local, that are female to male? What the percentage is?
What's funny is that I wished I'd have known you're going to ask me that, because I did have that information at one time. I spoke for California Rifle and Pistol Association, and I told them, that, and I had the statistics at that time. It's not on the top of my head. Numbers don't stick in my head. And so I do know that during COVID, there was a 30% jump in female gun ownership. And of that 30%, 3% of that was Black women. Right. So, which is huge.
Huge.
That's huge. That's huge both for women. That's huge for Black women, because their women are finally seeing that they're going to have to be their own first responders. Right. So, which is what I just love about A Girl and a Gun, circling back to that, is that one of the things that Girl and a Gun always teaches us is that we are our own first responders in every way. Right. It's not just about shooting. It's about being our own first responders in every way.
Yeah, it goes well beyond the gun. And
right,
And there's so much to talk about there. I just kind of circling back to that and kind of going with those statistics. So if it's a 30% jump, right, let's just say it's, I don't know, let's say it's 25% of gun owners are female, right? So that's a large chunk of folks that contribute to the industry, that could be training, right, that will buy product, that will buy services, whatever those things are. They also vote, right? Those are also registered voters. If you're old enough to buy a firearm in the state of California, you're old enough to vote. That plays in here. And so what you've got is a relationship with a shop owner who understands or understood that, at least at some level. Like, this is an opportunity for us to kind of carve out our own niche here with regard to having somebody that isn't just a female, right? But has this background, has this resume, and wants to do it, and is not intimidating in a sense, where the other 6 guys working behind the counter are automatically going to do that for the reasons we already said, whether they're trying to or not.
Exactly. And let me take it one step further. We have a very large group of young men that were not raised in gun households. You and I were raised in a gun household where guns were an everyday thing. It is so everyday that we didn't really even think about it, right? Where there's a large group of young men that have been grown up in a home and in a societal environment that was anti-gun. And so they don't know all the words and the nomenclature and all the things that you need to know to talk the talk and walk the walk.
No, they do not. Yeah.
And so they're less intimidated by me too. Right.
So this is so interesting. I'm just going through the process. So some of the things that you can help a gun buyer with.
Right.
Men or women, the things that you can help them with, and the decision-making process for a woman versus a man in this environment who doesn't know all of these things. Right. So let me tell you how and I'm sure you already know this because you deal with it all the time. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know. I've actually had folks sit here that work behind gun counters, men, that sit behind it, and they've identified this stuff too, but it's really basic, I think. Women are much more discerning. They're going to do a lot of research. They want to find out. They want to dig a little bit and find out, like, I don't want to make a mistake.
Right.
I don't, the biggest thing is the ego factor. Like, they're not trying to fit in. They're not trying to to join the cool kids club most of the time. What they're looking for is the solution for their problem, whatever it is.
Right.
Versus the men, which will go, well, my buddies have this, and they say that this is what I'm supposed to have, and this is what all these guys, and this is what they're posting on Instagram, and I feel like this is what I need so that I can fit into the crowd, right?
Yeah.
And I know what I need to know because that's how I've gotten my information. I think there's a very different buying and research process that goes on here. So maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah. So women, when you talk to a woman about why she wants to have a gun, it's always for self-defense. It's shocking when you hear a woman come in and say, I'm going to go on my first hunt. It's exciting because that means that she's evolved past that I need to protect myself stage, right? So that's always really exciting. But usually when a woman comes into the gun store, she wants to be able to protect herself either at home or out on the street. So we have to have that conversation of, are you ready to have the time to go through the training that it's going to take for you to be proficient with a handgun? Or do you want to go a different direction, which would, of course, be a shotgun in the home, right? Where men will come in and they don't really want to discuss anything with you other than maybe which trigger do you like better, right? Because they're usually going to come in with their buddy, and his buddy is going to come in. Where women typically come in by themselves, and they want to talk to you about what they've learned, what they've been reading, what they've been told. One of the things that I really don't like is that when a woman comes in with a man, typically they want her to have a revolver, and a very small revolver.
Almost every time, right?
It's like, I mean, revolvers are great. I fully intend on spending the summer competing with a revolver. But it's not going to be one of those little tiny pink ones, right? It's going to be something that I can get like a K-frame that I can get my hand on, right? And so that is, that's always very frustrating.
So I wonder if this is just, so I think it's a little bit of this probably, because I have this in me too, and there's this protection mechanism, right? The man needs to protect the woman and guide her appropriately. And I think that's very noble, and I think there's some really good stuff
which
there.
Which is why you can't just go, you're wrong.
Right.
You've got to lead him into understanding that women's bodies are different. Our upper bodies have a different strength level, the way we have to handle ourselves. And that, maybe that little revolver isn't the right option. Right. And I also often offer to take that woman out to the range with things that I have, for a lesson where you can try all these different things, but I'm going to ask your man to not be there.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's so smart and so important. I think, again, my experiences with that have been on the range with a male and a female instructor, and it just kind of, the vibe just kind of separates the two. And I think it's healthy and it's good. And you get to see a female instructor that's proficient and understands, what she's doing. And then there's the most important thing I think you just said there was getting their hands on stuff to understand what it does. Because if they're just looking in the counter like you would pick out jewelry or a handbag or something like that, that is much, obviously we're talking about two very, very different things.
Right.
And again, a male's perspective on that can be very, very different. And it's not about, I think for men, it's about making sure she's as comfortable as she can be. Right. And so it kind of clouds or muddies the waters when you're going through this process, I'm sure. Right. I've seen it before. I mean, I've got male and female friends that are married or have significant others or whatever the case is. And they've run interference on this process that I think a woman needs to go through or is going through. When I say needs, I just mean, generally speaking, they're way more researched.
Right.
They're just smarter about the process in my mind. Unless
the only women that I see that don't go through that process are the ones that have a man in their life that, and again, these aren't value statements. They trust their man to help them make that decision.
Yes.
But unfortunately, because they have kind of turned their brain off. But see, this is, okay, I don't know how to say this any other way than just to blurt it out.
Yeah, put it out there.
Most women that were not raised in a gun home come to the gun counter from a perspective of victimhood. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Whether they've been a victim of violence with a gun or not, all they hear, everything that's gone into them up to that time is that guns cause women to be victims, right? And so you kind of have to peel that away gently without them knowing it, so that you can get them down to realizing that this was a tool. It didn't victimize anybody, because you can set it on the counter and it's not going to do anything. It's going to take somebody's hand to pick that up, right? And so when she comes in and she's got a man that she really trusts to handle that for her, she's still under that victim
totally get
idea.
It. Yeah, it's
right?
by proxy.
Right.
Yep.
And so she's wanting somebody to take care of her. But the problem is that she's never going to blossom into that woman that can really take care of herself unless we take that away.
Because he can't be there all the time anyway.
Can't be there. She has to learn to be her own first responder.
That's the whole point.
Right.
That's the whole point.
And so we need to get her away from that so that we can help her realize that maybe that's not the right idea. Maybe this is, and let me show you why, at woman to woman, right?
Yeah, I think there's probably another part of the spectrum too, and that is the woman that grew up in a household with brothers and a dad who were into hunting and into shooting, and it was just something she was never included in. This is what the guys do, right? And this is what we do, and you don't even have to worry about this because we're here to protect you, and we'll hunt, right? Yeah. We'll protect the home. Yeah. You know, we'll be the one that shows up if you're in trouble, and all you have to do is call us, and we'll take care of business. So, again, it's very noble, and I think that's awesome in a lot of ways. But to your point, what that does is that it creates that separation. Well, it creates that, I guess, the way you termed it was that level of victimhood. Like, we know you can be, and we're here to protect you. Yeah. Without thinking about, I mean, I've had my own experiences where I've, I'm good, I got this, and then I'm not there. Like the way the podcast sort of got started was during COVID, and we had some craziness happening out in the street. I came down to protect our business, right, when there was things going on with firearms. Yeah. And I didn't have to use those, but I had them as a tool in case things got out of control. And then I was here, and it literally dawned on me, I just left my family at home. Yeah. Like, what happens if shit goes down there? Like, what have we done to prepare them? There was a whole different mindset shift for me. And like, while I'm here, they're there. That was a real reality check. Right. And it seems so basic, but I think it's so like deep rooted, maybe on the motherboard and the DNA, and how we're created. And how we've evolved to think like that. So it's not a bad thing. No, but it can interrupt the process.
Yes, and that's why even when I say, the guys at the range or whatever, I feel like I speak fluent old white guy, right? Because I'm around men so much, right? That some of the guys at the store actually tease me that maybe I'm not really a woman, right? And I always tell them I do know what a woman is, but
I love that.
But it is, the men and women are definitely different, and those shouldn't be value statements, right? And it's not a value statement, but if you're going to help somebody get from point A to point B, you have to know where point A is. Yes. Right. So when a woman comes in my store or a young man, I immediately start the Rolodex in my head, like listening to what they're saying and hearing where they've been, and I always try and ask them where they came from, just like you said, what is your experience? And so that way I can slowly piece together where they are and where they need to go. Be, right? So, which is why, with a brand new shooter, if you're not going to take the time to learn how to safely use a pistol, but you want to defend your family and your home, then maybe a 410 shotgun's the best thing for you. Right. Gotcha. And somebody's going to, and I inevitably always have some man say to me, well, she needs a 12 gauge. Well, she's only 4'2", right. Dude. She's not going to be able to handle that, And, Hornady makes some really nasty rounds that go through a 410 that will just take care of business, So I like to come to it with a more of a can-do attitude instead of it has to be this way or the highway. Yeah. Right.
This is a way.
Yes.
Let me talk to you about it. It's not the way.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So I love that. You covered a lot of statements that I think now transition us really well into a girl and a gun.
Yes.
Because if that's the environment that you're in and you're comfortable being in, and you're trying to make it comfortable for everybody else that walks into the store, man or woman, it's, again, it shouldn't matter, but it does for all the reasons you just said. Then obviously there is this huge market, right? And huge population of folks out there that need to be approached a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And they need to have an easy, frictionless entry point in there so that they can grow and develop.
Right.
And then ultimately be introduced to all kinds of things, which is what a girl and a gun does for that population. So let's talk about girl and a gun.
Okay.
So again, I got hooked up with Robin.
Yes.
Again, it was about 5 months ago now. And you know, aside from what I could read, right, or listen to maybe through a podcast or through, you know, just reading websites or talking to people that had an experience, I'll tell you, here's what I got from Robin right away. She is all business.
Yes.
She is all business. She's very smart, very confident, very competent at a lot of things.
Yes.
One of those things is business, and one of those things is community building.
Right.
And I think, again, there's a lot of men out there that would love to have a community like what Girl and the Gun has been able to build, and they won't be able to do it because there's too many things that get in the way, some of which we've already covered.
Yeah.
So this organization is very large. It's doing a lot of cool things. So I want to talk about it. So I'll let you start with wherever you want to start with Girl and a Gun, because you've alluded to a few things, but talk about it.
I want to just say one more thing about Robin is that Robin is also, I mean, she's not all business. Okay. She's all woman. I don't know how to explain it any other way. So Robin, she remembers you and remembers the conversations she had with you a year later. Okay. So, so I was just a regular member. Okay. And then, you know, it kind of evolved to where I was going to be able to start a chapter. I sat on the phone with her for about an hour and we discussed several things. Now, this woman talks to a lot of people about a lot of things all the time. Okay. So the next time I need to talk to her, she recalls everything that I said to her, everything that, you know, and the next time we see each other face to face, she picks me out of a crowd and says, "Oh, Tamara." And then, you know, I'm walking with a woman and she goes, "Oh, Starla." Right. And she remembers one of the new members of from a photograph.
There's a strong connection.
She's got a very strong connection to her community. She loves us, right? She wants what's best for us. I've been on so we have monthly facilitator meetings and she calls it the state of the sisterhood. Okay. And so we go over all kinds of things. And then there's an open forum time. And I recall one time where there were some ladies that were upset about some big change that had to happen.
Change will do that.
And some people were really upset about it. And she sat there it's a Zoom meeting. So all of our faces are showing. And she is listening to these ladies with their complaints and she's taking it to heart. And I actually feel like I fell in love with her at that moment, because you can always know somebody by the way, you know, it's like, I don't know how to explain it another way. It's like everybody walks around with a little cup, right? And, you know, as long as nothing's bumping us and our cup is just fine, right? We're all really nice, right? And so I had never really seen Robin bumped. And Robin was bumped on that day, right? Because you could see that some of the things were really hitting her in the heart, because some people were taking it very personally and lashing out personally. And Robin, I could see that it hurt her, but she did not lash out. She loved everybody through it. She took all their information. And so that, in a nutshell, is why Girl and a Gun does so well, is because it's not somebody doling out information and saying, we're doing this, we're doing that. She collaborates with us. She loves us, and she loves the female community enough to want to bring us up.
Gotcha.
Right? She's not trying to stand on our heads to make herself look great. She is trying to lift everyone up And by doing that, she ends up looking great.
It's leadership.
Yes, it's true leadership. It's true feminine leadership, which I think that our society has lost sight of.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very good conversation.
Yeah.
Very good conversation. And all of what you said there was bleeding out of her for the time that we did speak. And that's what I'd been preloaded with some of that before, going into it.
Yeah.
Like, you need to talk to her.
Yeah, she's fabulous.
She was. She is and was at the time that I spoke to her. So no surprise what you said, because I've kind of heard some of those things before.
Yeah, she's a wonderful human being. Yes.
So you got this massive organization.
Yes.
And when I say that, I do mean that. Like, we're not messing around. We're in how many states?
All of them.
50
and
states.
Some of the outer lying, like Guam. And so we've got it. So we're actually trying to, Robin and I both have been trying to find somebody here in the Bay Area that I can help get going, because I'm the closest person to, and it took us forever to get here today. But so we're trying to get in the Bay Area because all the online presence shows that there is plenty of women that would
huge market.
Yeah, would be very, very willing to be involved. I just need to find a facilitator, because I can't. I
starts
can't
with the person.
Here. Yeah,
you got to have it.
I can't be here. Yeah, you got to have a person here, and so and they need to qualify, because the one thing that I do love about A Girl and a Gun is that we walk the walk and we talk the talk, and we don't do that just to get in. It's all the time. Like,
talk about that. It's like, talk about the vetting process when you say qualified.
To be a facilitator, you have to have at least an NRA pistol instructor's license.
All right. So that's the base level.
Yeah.
Right?
So personally, I have the NRA pistol, rifle, shotgun, inside the home, outside the home. And so all the shooting NRA training certificates that you could have, I have.
Okay. So we cover the base foundation of you have to have at least gone through, completed the pistol.
Okay. Gotcha. And then you have to be able to do the FBI qual, shoot the FBI qual.
Okay.
Clean.
That's the qual.
Right. That's the qual. And you have to requalify every 2 years.
Okay.
Okay. And then you have to, then the other minor thing, which is not so minor because we are our own first responders, is you have to have a stop the bleed course.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So if you're going to punch holes in things, you need to be able to plug them.
Yep. Gotcha.
So not necessarily for the bad guy, leave him alone, but maybe our sister might need to be plugged up.
Okay.
Right. So that's the base. Right. So if I could get somebody down here, and I actually, when I'm taking NRA classes, I often ask the other ladies in the room, hey, if you're from the Bay Area, if you're interested. And I've had 2 different gals, but they were stumped on the FBI qual.
Okay.
So, and to me, I guess I just don't remember not being able to qualify for that one.
You have to be proficient.
Yes.
Right? You can't just take classes. You have to be able to do the thing. Yeah. So, okay. So I love that. So there's a base standard, right? For it's not just put instructor in the instructor bio.
Yeah.
There's something behind this, some meat and potatoes behind it. Okay, I love that.
Yeah.
All right, what else? So you've got some basic qualifications. I understand many of you, and you just mentioned, compete on a regular basis. And I would imagine that's kind of part of the culture, right?
It is. I mean, there are some ladies that just don't have time, and I can't do IDPA or USPSA because they are either on Saturdays or Sundays. I work on Saturdays, and Sunday's kind of my family day.
Thing. Yeah, it's a thing.
And so there are other places that I compete, combat action pistol matches, those kind of things.
Okay.
And so that's what I do. I actually won last year. So,
oh, good for you. Congrats.
Yeah. It was kind of fun.
Was that local?
It was in Lincoln.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. So, that was a fun competition. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole competition thing becomes a challenge. I mean, I talked to a lot of law enforcement officers that have shifts where they're like, I will have to take a day off of work and not get paid to go do this. If I'm going to do that, I really need to be spending time with my family.
Right.
In other parts of the country, like example, Arizona, I have a lot of friends that live in Arizona. Man, you can get into a match 5-6 days a week. There's something going on, right? In middle of the day,
not so here.
Not very much. And that's a tough thing, like just access to do that here.
Yeah.
Like in order to shoot like USPSA, we're out in like Oakdale, and then there's some that happens in Richmond, but Oakdale for me is going to be an hour and a half,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's a Saturday. So I got to
So
get
that's 3 hours just in drive
just to
time.
get there.
Yeah.
Right. And then you're there all day long.
Mhm.
Right. And then it's a commitment just
Right.
to get there.
Yes.
If there was something more local, again, if you had a chapter here more locally, maybe they could be putting some of the stuff together, but
Right.
okay. Gotcha. All right. So some of you compete and do that on a
Yes.
regular basis,
Mhm.
including
Yep.
yourself.
Mhm.
What else? What are some of well, let's go back to the membership side of this thing. So we're in 50 states.
Yes.
How many chapters are there?
Oh my goodness. I think I wrote that down. So there are, I knew you were going to start asking me things like that. And so let me just tell you this. We've got 7, just in at national conference alone. Okay, these are the numbers that I wrote down for you. So conference was in April 2024. We had 1,000 people on site. 750 of those were women in training. 94 were instructors.
Wow.
Okay, we had dozens of staff, volunteers, and sponsors. Okay, in April, we sent out 639 membership packets. 2,236 women attended 445 chapter meetings, which is a 15% increase
That's
from
outstanding.
last year.
Cool.
567 women attended 3 virtual events. We have 3 virtual events a month.
Okay.
So, and those are recorded. So that means that there were 567 women watching it while it was playing. And then a lot of people go back, because I go back and watch them recorded because I'm usually at work when they go off, right? So we had 344,296 social views, 124,907 website views, 27,589 unique website visitors, and then 2 new chapters, one in Kansas and one in Florida, and then 14,008 users of our smart app. So we have a smart app that we use. We just rolled out our new defensive marksmanship program. That goes hand in hand with our pistol marksmanship program. So we have a women's pistol marksmanship program that our ladies work their way through and get gold and silver beads for this really cool leather band bracelet.
Okay.
And then now we have our defensive marksmanship program. So those are the numbers that I have in front of me. How many actual chapters there are is a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're 50 states. I understand that some states have more chapters than others. So you've got some members that travel to nearby states or nearby chapters or whatever.
Yes.
So you're covering a large part of the map, right?
Yes.
The other thing, some of the things I picked up there is in terms of how the organization keeps people together and continues to build the community and makes people involved or helps people be involved and connected to the community, regardless of where they are, regardless of the size of their chapter or whatnot, like through leveraging digital, leveraging the Zoom space and things like that to bring people together and give them opportunities to touch and be around other people that are interested in whatever the subject matter is. And in this case, obviously, Girl in a Gun covers a lot of things. My point in doing this is that's often left to the individual to go out and try to find camps to kind of be a part of, or tribes. Maybe that's a better way to put it. And generally speaking, that often just happens through social media.
Right.
The power of social media is amazing.
Right.
I have a deep internal resistance to it at times for a lot of reasons. I'm sure, people agree or disagree on a lot of levels with some of the stuff that goes on there. The point being is what you're doing is you're giving a home base back to people to come to.
Right.
And recognize that there are so many other people out there doing similar things, struggling with similar things, being successful at certain at other things, coming up with new ideas, being introduced to things they probably didn't even know existed, which can encourage like an upstart of maybe it's a new chapter, again, just becoming a member, but having a new curriculum being implemented and how do we do that? So it's a machine to a certain extent. Why do you think women are so much better at building these types of things than men?
Well, actually, that's a good question. Okay. One of the things, so I raised 6 kids, 3 girls, 3 boys.
Yep.
I was always closer to my brothers growing up than I was my sisters. Okay. And I tend to hang out with guys more than I hang out with girls.
Okay.
And that's been the way I've been all my life. But one of the things I did notice, and I notice a lot is that women tend to be collaborators. Men tend to be rugged individuals. Okay. And I know that's a gross overstatement.
I don't know that it is, but
I think that women tend to work better in groups than men do. So that's just my thing.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
I think it's a great answer. I would probably say the same thing. I think when you get men in very small groups, they tend to do pretty well.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you start to expand that group, I don't know to what the number X is there.
Yeah.
But there reaches a perimeter on that where it starts to get, I don't know, wildly out of control. It gets a little bit, energies get misplaced, right?
So, and I don't see that happening with women. So I do think that there does tend, you always hear about the, like the mean girls and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that actually happens with small groups of women. They get together and they might be the mean girls, right? But when you get a large group of women together, like, so take for instance, so my local range does this thing called Annie Get Your Gun. And it's just all the community women, and I go and I help teach, or I help with the event, and maybe I'll teach a station or something. But it's really put on by the local 3-gun. Okay. And so they want to give these women an opportunity to know what it's like to shoot a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun.
Gotcha.
And then maybe they'll want to join in and start competing with them. And so I help them do it every year. It helps me promote Girl in a Gun, get some of the ladies that might want to learn more about it. And it's just as good for the community at all. But what's really cool is that you group these women together in all these various groups. They come and they might want to be squatted together. And so they'll ask to be squatted together, but sometimes we just start squatting people, right? And so they're in a group of women that they don't really know each other. And somebody hits a steel target and everybody goes, yay, yay. That's so exciting. But you don't see that with men. And here are these grown women, right? And some of them, can barely even jump around, but they're jumping up and down for joy for their sister that just hit a target, right? And I think that that's what it is that in large quantities, women tend to build each other up. And men just don't do that.
I think I could be more specific about that too. And I think women are looking for common ground.
Yeah.
Men are looking for all the differences.
Yes.
And then those differences come out when they're processed. They come out in behaviors. They come out in attitudes that limit growth or limit their ability to see any further than that difference. Where I see women, you mentioned the word collaborating in a different way, and even like socially. So I would imagine, I have no idea, but tell me if I'm totally wrong. But the situation you just described, where you're putting these, these groups of women together, and they're encouraging one another, and they're cheering for one another and whatever, and they're probably exchanging their phone numbers or their Instagram, handles or whatever. And then they go back and they're having these conversations either in a group or one-on-one, and they're long conversations. You're going long form in the DMs, if you will. Whereas dudes will go back. They might start that, and what those DMs turn into. Sorry, I'm cracking up because I'm in a million of them. It's emojis and memes, right? It's emojis and memes, right? And which is a very safe thing to do, right? And it's it's humorous or whatever. Again, I think men and women connect at a very different level on for a lot of different reasons. My point is that's kind of the community that the communities that get driven. And I think it's healthy and it's good. And then occasionally you'll get into those male chats or whatever, where something will go deep and people will be exchanging very technical stuff, but it's not usually, hey dude, I just want to tell you how proud I am of you for for what you did. Yeah. Like at that, like somebody will post a video of a stage they ran or whatever, and it's like, good shooting, man, or that was awesome, or something like that. Or it'll be the thumbs up emoji or something. Yeah. Right. Whereas women will actually explain, why we
thought they did so great.
Yeah. So these are just the differences that exist. Yeah. But again, when you're able to put people together like that in that kind of a way, particularly women, I think maybe the word is blossoms, or it grows from there. Versus this, I think the growth is very limited, and there's also the club that exists there that it's like a tight circle and these are our dudes, right?
Yeah.
And this is like, we don't share this information with anybody else. This is this is us dudes. Cause usually that's like, we make one another feel good, right? With that thumbs up emoji is good with me. Like, I'm good. Yeah. I'm part of this. I'm part of this group. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Versus there's not a lot of constructive criticism going on or propping up. Interesting.
Yeah. And I will say, because we just came, we're hot off of a national conference where 5 of us from my chapter went there. And of course we stayed in an Airbnb together and, women, some of the ways that women are described is real. I mean, we can all be very catty, but we can also lay that aside and say, hey, we're just going to be together for 5 days.
Yeah.
And, so we're just going to take each other and love each other. And where I think that guys, there's lines in the sand that they just won't go over, you know what I mean? But women also will talk about more intimate things and be okay with it and hold each other's secrets in their hearts, where you can't always expect a man to do that, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm that way.
That way you can, that way we can grow more. I mean, of course, there's always the outliers. I don't want to say, I don't want somebody to think that I'm saying that all women are this way. I'm just saying that the women I choose to be around, I want to be who I am, and I want to be able to share parts of me. And if you are going to take what I've shared and you're going to do something nasty with it, then that's on you. I'm just not going to be friends with you. And I'm going to walk over with these women and I'm going to collaborate with these women over here. Right.
I totally get it. And I mean, men do that, but it's like with one person, right? Or maybe 2 people. I have some really good friends in my life that I'm willing to, I trust to share things with that I just wouldn't share with anybody or wouldn't likely share at all. So I totally get that. And I wonder, so part of the question that I have, or one of the questions I have is like, who are these people? Like, who are these members? Like, and when I say that, it's a broad question.
These women come from all different walks. Yeah. So, what's funny, okay, so we have several days. So it's 3 days of shooting. And then we have
This is the conference?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we have our early bird lectures. Okay. And then there's leadership day. Okay. So, leadership day is mostly just, helping us be better leaders, right? And then Early Bird Conference was talking a lot about, women and how we're different from men, right? And one of the female speakers was a woman that's going through menopause, right? Okay. I mean, there were women. We talk about these things happen, right? And and she was talking about that. She looked at what was the average age of the women in A Girl and a Gun. It's 50. Okay. So
that's the average.
That's the average age. So, I mean, that means, that what average means. So that means there are some younger people, but when you think about that, that actually kind of made me sad because I was really hoping for a younger crowd because that's really what we need.
I think the word you're looking for is diverse. Yeah.
There we go.
Maybe not.
Diverse. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just a total joke.
But what she was saying is that, this is what we are. This is where we are. This is where we are in our collective time in our biological history. And this is what we need to do because we need to be paving the way. And it actually made me feel really good about where Girl and a Gun is, right? Even though our average age is 50, that means that we are paving the way for these younger ladies to be their own first responders, right? I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks because at first I was like going, oh, that's really sad. I want younger ladies. But every time I try to recruit a younger gal, she's got babies to take care of. She's got this. And I get it. I had babies to take care of. I had things I had to do that I didn't have time to even be at the range very much, let alone be at a Girl and a Gun meeting, right? But at least if we're paving the way for them and we're making the whole environment more conducive to co-ed, to male and female working together towards something, then that's okay. That's great.
I think it is too. I wonder, so you mentioned one thing, and that is being a mom, right? And the responsibilities that come. I mean, you talked about homeschooling your kids and having a business and having a job and being a wife and training and, you know, all those kind of things. That's a lot of things.
And that's a lot of ands.
It's a lot of ands. It's a lot of ands. I wonder, so outside of that, have there anything else been identified in terms of why more younger women aren't coming in, or do you have thoughts on that?
Well, I think that...
I mean, aside from it, I'll just put the elephant in the room is, it's a bunch of old ladies. I don't want to go hang around a bunch of old ladies.
Exactly. Well, I would say that that you would be shocked to go to a Girl and a Gun event and think that it's a bunch of old ladies, because we're talking about vivacious, you know, fun ladies.
Biological age is 50.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's not. And again, that means that there's some women that are older and some women that are younger, equal amounts, really. And so I would say that the reason why there's not a lot of younger women involved is because there is that little thing called time, right? And I know that I came to Girl and a Gun when I had time. Now, most women don't have 6 children. And most women don't homeschool their kids. So there could be time. So I try to have events in the afternoon and after work. So like
around school time.
Yeah. So I have one event that happens like when I would imagine somebody would be dropping a child off at school, like a more of a morning type
Looks
thing.
like the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like the gym out here.
Yeah. And so I have that time block and then after work. So then that maybe dad can take care of the kids and mom can go do stuff. So it's not a perfect science, and I'm still trying to figure out where my community is going to have those girls, but I do see the younger girls coming in the store. And so I'm always giving them information and saying, hey, if you need me for anything, because maybe if not Girl and a Gun, maybe then they could just at least take a lesson here or there. Girl and a Gun is a great way to keep your skills up and learn new skills. It's not always the best place to learn to get your beginning skills, but all of us are trained. And Tatiana Whitlock, who is our head of training, has actually made our own intro to handguns and
like a curriculum.
Yes. Yeah. So we have this, and it's very, very much focused on the female shooter, exactly what she needs to know, exactly what's going to make her first, few steps into firearms very successful.
Yeah, I caught a bit of that on the website, just in going through there and kind of digging deep into some of the corners of it, because there's a lot on there.
There's a lot.
And what that appeared to me to be is like there's like a learning management system there and a curriculum that you can go through as a member. And it starts with very basic fundamental stuff. Like this is your gun. How do you disassemble it? Like how does this thing work? Right. To, all different types of things about different handguns as an example, safeties versus non-safe, all kinds of stuff.
All that.
I found it, I couldn't watch the videos because I'm not a member of Girl and a Gun.
Right.
But at the same time, I looked at it, I go, this is very smart, because it can bring people in before they actually maybe have time to commit to going out to an event or training.
Yeah.
A couple of the things for me come up here, and that is, and I relate to the gym. I'm an idiot. Like I've been in the gym business my whole life, but this is how I relate to this a little bit, in that, out on the gym floor, everything we do here is coached. So it's very similar to, what you've done. And we've tried to build a community around that. And I look at kind of the tribes of folks that come in and where they're coming in life. And we have a lot of folks at that 50 range, 40 to 50 range, that are deep into their careers. Their kids are older now, they can take care of themselves at home or whatever, or they are off to college or doing whatever, as they're growing up, which gives them more time to come in. We often see young moms coming in, post-pregnancy or pre-pregnancy for that matter, is they're like, hey, I want to be healthy for my baby. Right. Yeah. And I know I need to get healthy so that I can be healthy for my baby and my family, post-pregnancy. And I say all that to say is it's very unselfish in a lot of ways. And I think women are a lot of times, I know a lot of times are very much, this seems selfish to me for me to take time away from my family. And the other part of this is finance, right? And the finance away from my family, where because I am maybe I have a part-time job, or maybe I'm not working. And a lot of that has to do with how much daycare costs, right? It just makes more sense for me to be home and take care while my husband, goes to work every day or whatnot. And to take time and to take finance away that would then take me out of the home and me doing something else, it doesn't feel right, doesn't sit right with them. And oftentimes it gets laid away right on the side until it reaches a point where they are in poor health, or they're in a state of depression because they don't look, feel, or perform the way that they wanted to, and they recognize how they got there, and they still battling that, it doesn't feel right for me to be spending money doing here. And there's actually a little like self-loathing about the fact when they do decide to do that. And it's not that they're not getting support, right? This is just what's inside them, right? Yeah. So I think about this and getting more younger folks involved, more younger women involved in this earlier, and how it then becomes part of the family dynamic, right? And it becomes part of the lifestyle. And it can be part of the budgeting process, budgeting of time, budgeting of energy, resources, and then obviously finance. I think I think there's a huge probably gap there. It's just from my outside looking in. I mean, I watch Cece sometimes struggle with that. It's like, look, she goes to BJJ one night a week with Callie, but that's because we share time with her dad, right? With Callie's dad. That's what we can do. And it's later at night, and that cuts into homework time. And we, we got to have dinner prepared and do all that stuff. And all of those things are factors. So I think that's a challenge, and I'm not sure how you overcome that outside of the things that you're currently doing, which is trying to bring people in early through these different avenues. I don't know. And
that's why I say, that's why I just keep trying, right? And that's what you have to do, is you have to keep putting things out for people. But you said finances are because buying a gun in California is very expensive.
It's more expensive than it's ever been.
Unfortunately, when we are taxed the way we are on guns, ammunition, and precursor parts, right? With that 11% tax that insane. So really, the only people that hurts are minority people, right? The people that actually need the protection. It doesn't help the guy, or doesn't hurt the people that are actually out doing crimes, right? It hurts women. It hurts minorities. It hurts the people that are in situations that actually need to learn to protect themselves. And now they can't, it's become something that they can't get. Now the criminal in the street, they can afford it because they're getting it through other avenues.
Yeah, we know they're not following the laws.
Right. So, and women do tend to be more law-abiding than men are. I mean, witnessed by how many women are in prison as opposed to how many men are.
100%.
Right? Yeah. And so you look at that and you go, yeah, well, now she's looking at, it's not going to be just $900 for that, or
whatever,
$600 for a SIG, or for a Glock. It's going to be, $600 plus 11% plus
ammunition
tax,
plus
the ammunition,
plus an optic if you want to put that on there.
Exactly. Even if she was just to stick with the the regular iron sights, it's gonna set her back, right? And now she's got to pay for training.
Yep.
Right. Now she's scared because she's a typical woman, and she's a little bit frightened of the bang, right? And she's also worried that maybe she didn't buy the right gun, right? So because it was the only one that she could afford. So, it's a lot to overcome. And so, which is why I always try to make the path as easy as possible by saying, hey, listen, I've got that one, and that one over there. And maybe by that time I might have that one too.
There's options.
Yeah. So you can try all these out, and I'll show you how to do it. And then you can make a decision after that, right?
Yeah. You brought up the time piece. I think that is a huge factor. And there's probably a large population of people out there that would say, well, that's not an excuse. You have to make the time. But I don't think you truly, people that say that.
Men say that.
Yeah, I would say that too. A lot of times. Yeah. I think that's while there are things you can't control in life, you also have to have priorities. And, where does this one lie in the hierarchy of priorities? So going back to who, you were mentioning some of the younger women that are walking into the store. I wonder about them. Like, who are they? Like, are they still coming from the same place of, I don't want to be a victim, or I have been a victim, But or are you seeing a change? Are you seeing like a change in that population in terms of what they're looking for, why they're looking for it? Is it different?
I would say that it different or same. I don't, all I know is that the women that typically come into the store are, they know our society is in a bit of decay, and they understand that, that there is danger out there, and they just want to know what their options are. And they're all starting to realize that pepper spray is not going to help. Right. And,
but that's what they've been getting told their whole life.
Yeah. And they also realize that trying to shoot someone in the knee is not necessarily the right way to go either. So, they're mostly
more aware.
Yeah. They're waking up, and they want to know what their options are. And they don't want somebody to be telling them, you have to do this, you have to do that. Because if you're going to talk to a mom and you're going to say, you have to choose between feeding your child or buying this gun, she's going to choose her child every time. Yeah. And that's, I have to say, oftentimes I take these training classes, and I'm the only female in the class, and I get bombarded by these guys that are saying the most outlandish things. Like one guy said, we were going around the room and saying who we were and what our qualifications were, and, just a little bit about ourselves. And so I always like to throw in there that I'm a mom of 6 children, and this is why I'm where I am.
You're a mom first.
Yeah, because I am a mom first. Even though my children are all out on their own, I'm still their mother. If they call me, I go to them, right? And so, and my grandchildren too. I have 2 grandchildren that I will drop the earth for, right? And this one guy, the subject of calibers came up. And this guy was literally standing over me, reading me the riot act about how is he putting it? He was going, well, I love my family so much that I wouldn't let them shoot anything less than a .40 caliber.
Oh, good Lord.
And I'm like going, oh my
Sounds like the internet.
Yeah. It's like, please stop. Like, oh my gosh. And so I at first I was like trying to explain to him, because I do come to the table with a can-do attitude. I want to help educate people. I want them to understand what was going to help a woman. Higher calibers is not going to help her. Louder bangs, and seriously, .40 caliber. Come on. I mean, all the ballistic testing out there, just please stop. You're looking like an idiot. Okay.
Oh, he is.
But
you are.
I know. But so anyway, the thing is 9mm is really nice. And really, if you're too afraid to do anything, let's start you on a 22.
Right.
It's like, what child?
Pathways.
Yeah. See, and it's like I say to men a lot. When I say, it's okay to start on a 22. It's okay. I mean, you started on a 22 when you were a kid, right? Yep. Oh yeah, I did. Well, think of her as a kid. If you were teaching her a foreign language, you wouldn't be teaching her how to conjugate verbs.
We wouldn't go straight into the immersive
language. You'd start with baby talk, right? So let's start her on baby talk. Okay, let's start her with a 22. Get some fun. Show her how fun this can be, and then let's step it up to a 9mm.
I think that transcends so many things in life, right?
Yeah.
Beyond firearms.
Yeah.
I'm listening to you say that. I think one of the things that comes to mind here is I think what you're talking about is a deep level of unconscious incompetence there.
Yes.
And I think women are way more comfortable in that than men are. And again, it goes straight to the ego piece. Growing up, my granddaddy used to take me out on and this is how we learn, and this is how it is, and this is the way kind of thing, versus the understanding that there could be many ways, and I want to know everything I possibly can. There's a much different, that men and women are much different that way.
Yeah.
Again, unconscious incompetence and that being that being an ego kicker for a man to say something like that. And again, it's just one more example of why the barriers of entry exist, and it's dudes a lot of times doing this, which is ridiculous. And it's almost always going to be dudes like that, right?
Yeah.
That
And unfortunately, they're trainers out there and they've got business cards and they have their place. They really do. They have their place teaching CCW classes and stuff like that. Incidentally, I did a women's intro to firearms class through Girl and a Gun for 6 women last summer. And I'm talking about this particular class because one of the women in that class was a victim of domestic violence. Her significant other actually held her down and held a gun to her head. And she was extremely victimized by that. She wanted to get over it. Okay. Another woman, her first intro to handguns was a boyfriend taking her out to some remote range and putting a 44 Magnum in her hand.
Jesus.
Right. And then two of the other gals had some other issue. They were all like, women with real issues, right?
People are dumb.
Yeah. And so and incidentally, this revolver that this guy put in her hand, flipped out of her hand and bonked her in the noggin.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah.
Weird.
So she was very afraid. So as I'm talking to all these ladies, I switch gears and decide that I'm just going to have them shoot 22s. I just so happen to have enough 22s in various shapes and sizes. Right. And so I took them through the class. I had them load and unload using dummy rounds. And one of the domestic violence woman was literally loading and unloading with tears running down her face, hands shaking. And I'd go, just pull the trigger. It's okay. It's it's got a dummy round in there, so you can pull that trigger. And the first couple times she pulled the trigger, she was scared to death, even though it was a dummy round in there. Mm-hmm. By the end of the evening, they were all high-fiving each other, right, wiping tears off of each other. Right. None of these women even knew each other beforehand. And this is a classic example of women that did come to the table victimized, right? And learned to get over it. Now, I've stayed in touch with all of them. Some of them joined my Girl and a Gun club. The gal that was a victim of domestic violence is not yet, although I still contact her, seeing if she's ready to start shooting a 9mm, but she is walking through life now a lot more confident than she was before. And that's what I want to bring to the table. And I know that's what a Girl and a Gun does for so many women.
Yeah.
Right?
And I love what you're saying there about paving the way.
Yeah.
Because again, it may look a very certain way right now, but it's evolving.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's what I'm getting that's what I'm getting from you, or I've gotten from you, but also obviously from Robin and some of the other folks I've talked to. Just the growth of this thing is it's and the fact that it isn't more well known is I think I probably understand some of the reasons why, and it's a lot of what you're saying because it's just not a popular, sexy conversation to have.
Exactly.
So I wonder about this part, just in how to communicate this. You're one person behind a gun counter, right? Who's got a chapter, who is an instructor. I wonder about spreading this message, and we're doing. That's the point of the conversation today, is to do that a little bit more. But I wonder what your thoughts are on how to do that better. Like where have women screwed up? You've already talked about a lot of things are doing really well, but where have they screwed up, and how can they, when I say screwed up, maybe it's just, we're just not there yet. We haven't done all the right things. What are some of the other right things that we could be doing?
Right. Well, I don't know that there's actually been a screw up. I think that what it's been is a learning curve. Okay. So, and I think that's one of the differences between the way men and women.
I just said that. Yeah. I'm looking for the negatives.
Okay. So I don't think that women have screwed up as much as we didn't know how to play the game. Right. So where women, not unlike myself, would go to the range and it was not a comfortable environment for us. We would still keep going, but we wouldn't invite our girlfriends because it was too uncomfortable for us and we didn't want to be uncomfortable for two. Right?
Gotcha.
Because for me, like if I bring one of my girlfriends into an uncomfortable environment, I not only feel uncomfortable for me, I feel uncomfortable for her too.
Take responsibility for that. Yep.
So I didn't invite any of my girlfriends, where now I invite my girlfriends all the time. Right. So that's one of the things, is that we should have started inviting our girlfriends and say, hey, this is uncomfortable, but we're going to break through this barrier. Instead, we just kind of, kept our heads down and did what we had to do to get the job done. Or we hid off in some corner and made like a little place for us to shoot on our country property or our friend's country property instead of
kept it very protected.
Yeah. And
safe.
so where now, I do know some people that have private ranges where they have their girl in a gun events. I don't want to do that. I use public ranges. I get there and I go over and I shake the men's hands, and I tell them what we're doing, and I invite their wives. I get to know their wives' names, and I invite them. I invite their children, because you made the point. We're talking about the kids and families and all that. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Yep. We all know that,
happy
right?
Wife, happy life, as they say.
Exactly. Yeah. So and we can easily say that about children too.
Yep.
So you can't like the particular range, the very first particular range that I started meeting in, their main focus was always the youth, right? We've got to get the youth. And many of the people on the board didn't want Girl in a Gun there. And so I went to a board meeting one time and I said, so how do you think that you're going to get more children,
literally,
more youth?
Who's bringing them here?
Who's bringing them here?
Yeah.
Is it moms or the dads? No, it's the moms, because moms take on most of that responsibility. It's just a fact of life. It's not a value statement. So, why are we not trying to entice more women into the shooting sports? Mm-hmm. Why aren't we spending more time on them? And it was like an epiphany to them. You're kidding.
I mean, this is, again, going back to my lizard brain, this is the gym business, right? Like if you go to, and I think like you look at martial arts, here's a really good example. Like you go to martial arts means many things to many people, right? But when you go to some of these places, what do you have? You walk in at 6:00 at night, right? And they've got the kids session, right? And you got 20, 30 kids out there. And what's going on? You got mostly moms and maybe a couple of dads sitting there while kids are working out or going through their training. Dude.
Why aren't you having a women's class at the same time?
Just do a little math for God's sake.
Yeah.
Just do a little math. Like it's low-hanging fruit, right? They're already there. All you got to do in that case is get their shoes off, get them in a gi, and get them in a different room so they're not distracted by the kids. Because what are they doing inevitably while they're there? They're scrolling on their phones, or they're talking to the parents sitting next to them, already making these. They're probably going to the same kids' birthday parties and all that stuff. Why not do this? It just makes perfect sense to me. That's, again, that barrier, that not thinking that way is always challenged me a little bit. At the same time, like I can't. Look, I'm not a firearms instructor. I don't know. I also know that the environment's a little bit different there. Yeah. So you have to set up the environment correctly in order to get folks there. And Girl in a Gun has done this.
Yes. Yeah.
We're just we haven't necessarily done this at our local ranges. We haven't made them entirely family friendly.
Right.
We've made it one thing. It's this model that just gets kind of reproduced. Yeah. We have, in most cases, it's a range. There's a gun counter. You go in, it's all dudes in there. It's a bunch of guys, walking around with peacocking, or whatever else, right? And to think that mom's going to bring her 2 kids in there and go, hey, I came here for some shooting lessons for me and my kids is absolutely ridiculous to think about. Yet I'm just looking, again, let's do some math. This is like, what are the opportunities here?
Well, and then of course you have the time restraints, and that to me, like, a lot, and in your industry, I think that they are getting it. There's a lot of gyms now that have little daycares, right?
Yep.
And so the daycare watches the children where mama gets to work out,
100%.
right? And it's like, it's all inclusive in the yearly membership, right? You get this many days that you get to use this daycare. Where you go to the ranges are open from 8:00 in the morning till 5:00 at night, right? I'm range safety officer out at one of them, and they close at 5:00, and I'm like thinking,
You look at what you left on the table there.
Right.
I know so there's some restriction there in terms of noise ordinances and things. If it's outside, I get that, but I hear what you're saying.
But even the indoor ranges, they close at 5:30. And so it's like, that's about the time that mom is just getting off work.
That's when soccer practice is. Yeah. That's when karate practice is. That's when Girl Scouts is. That's when,
And so then you start adding up all these things. That's where the barrier is, right? So like, I have to say that if I had $1 million or two, and I were to
You're in California,
right?
It's 2.
Let's say $2 million, and I were to build a range, right? I would have that range open from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. There would be no, and maybe not all 5 to 7 days a week. I would have to have some days off. But, the thing is that moms can't get out until later, or if maybe their kids are in school, there's certain times that she can do that. And then I would even think about like a little play care situation where the wee ones that, in a soundproof room where their hearing is going to be protected and all that kind of stuff, and make it more conducive to women. I mean, I have to say that, I've gone back and forth with being a little bit disappointed with America in general, how we're so schizophrenic when it comes to women, right? It's like we want women to do everything that they want to do with their lives, but we don't provide them the opportunities because moms are still the ones that take care of the children, right? We're still the ones that are responsible for picking the kids up from school, all those kind of things.
Very true.
And I know there are many men that stand in the gap in that area. There are many men, but so again, I don't want to sound like one of those she-woman man haters because I'm
not getting that from you.
Yeah, I've been married for 40 years. I'm very happily.
You know a few things because you've seen a few things, though. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 6 kids, 1 husband. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So but like I was actually kind of proud of our society when we were saying, okay, work from home, right? And what's funny is statistically, we saw that women really thrived in that environment, right? They were working well. They were balancing their life and family. Like I have a daughter that works full time and she works from her home and she hires a little young lady to come in and take care of the kids and all that stuff. But all that to say that our society doesn't make life conducive to younger women being involved with all the things that they need to be involved with, their children, their husbands, their churches, if need be, their society, their friend groups. We want them to be involved in all of those things, but then we slam those doors shut.
Or we make it very expensive.
Right.
Very expensive. Because again, going back to opportunity, and I didn't want to make it just about business, but at the same time, like that's what we're talking about sort of at the end here. But providing them opportunities where they can get in and have at least some experience. Right. Or I think the term I'm looking for here maybe is just accessibility.
Yeah.
And here in California, it's terrible.
Right.
Just in general. It may be better in other places. I've traveled around and see a lot of other things. But again, you go out to like you're very rural, right? So how do you get people together in those rural areas to come together amongst all the things you just mentioned?
Right.
Like that takes time to get there. Do you have property? And then the restrictions that get put on, again, from a state perspective, I could not imagine trying to open a facility in Santa Clara County, California to do something like this because of the attitude towards firearms, right? Just in general, it would get shut down in a second. There's just, I know somebody that tried to do this, and I think it was just the expense alone would be crippling, right? Unless you've just got deep pockets for days. But at some point, I feel like the rug's going to get pulled out from under your feet here anyways. Like somebody's going to come and go, I don't like that idea.
Yeah.
I fund your campaign every year. And if this doesn't go away, then my money goes away from your campaign. I think it's another thing that we're up against just in firearms training and firearms training in general. So you stack all those things on, and you know what? I don't think I'd thought about it the way you've articulated here, and just again that accessibility piece in it, and how it is more difficult for women to enter into the space for those reasons. And then you tack on, we've made this, men in general, but that the space I'd say the space in general is just sorry for my language, it's fucking weird.
It is.
It is weird.
It's weird.
Like it's driven by some weird stuff. And when we really get back to it, shooting is shooting, right? And there are some fundamental things that people need to understand. They need to have experiences doing that stuff. And there has to be people out there going, look, there is a pathway, and this is what that pathway looks like. Again, going back to Girl and a Gun.
Right.
Like it's not go to the gun counter, go take a lesson and you're good.
Right.
Right. It's all of the things that come along with
Right.
that. And part of that is having that community, having that accessibility. But like, okay, you've gone through the first, a first step here, but I don't even think that's the first step. There's some other steps that you may have missed along the way.
Right.
Like, and you mentioned it, like, why don't we go out and try a few, right? We have all of these, and no, we're not taking that pink one, right? That's the one that just sits in here because somebody thought it would be a good idea to put that thing in the case, right? Right, because it would probably sell easy, yet it's sitting there collecting dust.
Right.
Well, that's the one you're probably steering people away from. Right. You don't want that one, right? Let's go try these things out, right? Let's give you an experience, and then now that we've tried a few things out, while we're doing that, let's show you how this thing actually operates. Let's break it apart. Let's figure it out. It doesn't just sit there, so you're not afraid of it. So you know how to. Those are things that I think get missed just in general, period. Because again, people are focused on the business end of it, and I mean that it being beyond the barrel, but also on the on the money or finance side of that. Like you said, it's gonna be $600 for a Glock. People across the country going, who pays $650 for a Glock, right? Well, we do. Right? We do here in California. And only the ones they allow us to buy. Right? The Department of Justice allows us to buy. So again, there's a lot of restriction there. And having more chapters so important. So I again, just kind of going back to all the things that I've seen Girl in a Gun do, there are the things that you've described, but I've also seen like there are so many different events or experiences that people can get involved in across the country. To maybe talk about some of those things. So
we've got national conference, and that's one we just had. So we also have the Clay's extravaganza. So that's, clay shooting and all that. I just invested in an over and under myself and been taking Clay's lessons so that I can go out to the Clay's extravaganza. We have a Fall Fest, which is our 3-gun university, right? So you go and learn how to shoot the 3-gun matches, and then they have a match there afterwards. It's just so much fun. And then we also have Glock getaways where we go to Smyrna, Georgia, and learn to be a Glock
like armor school and stuff?
It's the armor school, but it's more than that because we also get to train with the Glock trainer.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So then we have Drift Academy, which it's crazy. I can't, let me see if I can even remember what Drift stands for, but Drift is where you learn to work with it's dynamic real world immersion firearms training. Okay. It's the training course that addresses.
Drift. Got it.
It addresses all the aspects of vehicle defense.
Gotcha.
So inside a car, outside a car, driving a car, all that kind of stuff. It's really fun, and it's
also even the driving part. Oh, neat.
Yeah, that's. I have not been yet. I'm gonna go. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm only 2 years out of not having any kids at home. So.
Yeah, it's a big bucket list. I got it.
We have a sniper school where long distance shooting rifles, and a combatives camp. We have upland adventure where you can go and hunt, pheasants.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. So those are the national, the events that are around the United States, and then other than our local events, each the chapter events and our marksmanship program I told you about, we have quarterly matches where everybody in the whole national organization is given the same
course of fire.
Course of fire, and then you shoot it to a timer. And you fill out the documents.
It's like on practice score.
Yeah. So it's on our own version of practice score.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we find out who won, right? And
fun.
Yes. And you get to see where you rated each time and where you're getting up there. Yeah. So, and we've got some fabulous shooters and we've got some just brand new beginners. But in my chapter, even my brand new girls go, see where I
love that.
See where I land, because that's the thing is that there's not a lot of machismo in the women's world yet, right? And so even the beginners are like going, well, let's just see where I land. This would be kind of fun. So, and then of course, I told you about our 3 virtual events. We have virtual events every month. So one is with excuse me, Tatiana Whitlock, our director of training. One is where we go over value of the month, because one of the things that that Girl in a Gun is really big on is that we're not just about shooting. It's a whole lifestyle, right? We're trying to build women up in every way. Right. And so we go over values of the month and just encouraging each other to
be better
than we were yesterday. Right.
I love it.
Yeah.
Again, going through kind of what I was able to sift through there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the cool part about that is like, those are, again, you have this event or retreat type of thing. I've also seen it's very family friendly in a lot of ways. There's like mother-daughter, type of events. I think the last time we talked, maybe one was coming up or something like that. Fairly local, a couple hours from me, but from me. But the point being is like, you are trying to pull them in, and you're showing them how to do it. So again, I think it goes back to the pathway. You're not just telling them, it's not just a suggestion. It's like, hey, come to this and we will put this together for you, and everybody kind of, it's inclusive in that sense, but it also is exclusive in that it is a organization that you can be a member of, and that there's perks that come along with this.
Right.
And, part of that is, you mentioned the partnerships that exist there with like Glock as an example, which is amazing, that because this thing has to pay, this thing costs money, right? I mean, and so that, whenever you want to make sure you're getting the value, right, from wherever you're putting in. And I think a lot of people pay into things or give manufacturers or whatever a lot of money, and they're not necessarily getting the value that they thought they were going to get.
Right.
And then they get really disappointed. Right. And then they get angry about it. And then they want to tell everybody about this. But really what that started with was a poor decision on your part to maybe purchase that thing. Maybe that thing didn't fit your needs, right? It wasn't for your use case. It was the wrong decision. You didn't go out and do the research you should have, or the practice, or you didn't have the accessibility to get the experience in order to make a better decision. So rather, going back to the finance piece, rather than making like $300 or $400, $600 mistakes, right? You could have bought once, cried once, as they say, and gotten the thing that you needed in order to be able to do the things that you want to do. And always there's a learning curve with that. Like you get into this world deep enough, and I'm sure you are at this point, like there's always something, right? There's always something out there. And again, going back to the female versus male component there, I think like women would be much more apt to go into something like, I don't have anything. Like I don't even own a gun, but I want to go check this out to see if maybe they'll tiptoe around a little bit before they feel like they have to be committed, and showing up to a range where they feel embarrassed because they're not dressed right. They don't have the right, I'm sure that's part of it, right? What do I wear? But like, what holster am I supposed to have? Like what belt, what magazine holder? Is this the right gun or is it not the right gun? Like things that matter but don't matter at this stage in the game.
Right.
And again, the events and the things that are there that again, that you give access to, including that, like that online kind of education, it's all covered. So you're not reaching to find out what the latest influencer said. Right. They can trust what you're doing.
Yeah. And like I said, Robin compiles all that information of what, because oddly enough, the Glock 19 is the most carried and most used firearm by women, right? Just the humble old Glock 19.
It's a good gun. I got a couple of them myself.
Yeah, I do too. I have two of them. I have the 19C just because it came in the store and I thought, try that.
I want that.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I took it.
That's a whole other thing, right? I can't go into the rabbit hole of like, what do I have?
Yeah.
So, one of the things you said that was really important for you kind of up front here is trying to find somebody like or trying to find, instructors or facilitators in certain areas.
Yeah.
And so again, locally or regionally, we're talking about the Bay Area. How do people find out more about Girl in a Gun, or if they want to get involved, where do they go? Like, what do they do if they wanted to just maybe be a member, or again, tiptoe around a little bit and kind of figure it out?
Well, you can be a member of any chapter, right? And then you can be, then you get access to all the online training, right? And incidentally, I didn't say that we have a book club too. So we have a book that we're reading every month on training or situational awareness, or just generally how to be a better person.
Are you in that club?
I am.
What are you reading right now?
What am I reading right now?
I'm curious. What's in the club?
How to Lead When You're Not in Charge is the one. That was actually last month's book. I'm just finishing up because I had to go back over it because there was some really interesting insights there, of how to be a leader when you're not the one in charge, right? Which, I think it's good information for women.
I think it's good information for everybody.
Written by a man, but it was a fabulous book. And I would have to actually look up in my because I actually listen to most of my books on Audible.
I'm the same.
Yeah. And so the next one is The Safety Trap by Spencer. What's his name? Spencer. It's anyway. Spencer Corson is his name. Yeah. So, so it's but we've read some fabulous books, right? And so that gets you the list of all the books we've ever read. So if you ever really, have you read The Left of Bang? I can't think of who wrote that book, but oh my gosh, that is like this thick, but it's a fabulous, that one actually I had to read in paper because it was really, really good.
So I occasionally will do that too. I've got one sitting on my nightstand right now. I haven't cracked open yet. Yeah. But I told it because actually it was given to me by the author. His name's Tom Marshall. I'm going to try to actually have him on the show. Really interesting guy. Was an editor for some of the really big firearms, magazines and publications out there. But my point being is like, I got to read this one.
Yeah.
Like I got to sit down and read this.
Because I'm a very sensory person. So I can go back to a spot if I can, because I can feel where it is in my hand. But when I'm listening all the time, I can't tell where that was said. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, where if I'm holding the book and I grew roots in that particular spot, I can flip back to it immediately. Right. Yeah. So some of the books we read this month in January, we read Brave Not Perfect by Reshma Saunji. I can't really pronounce her last name. Fundamental Laws of De-Escalation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, by Brendan King. And then How to Lead When You're Not in Charge. And then this month is The Safety Trap. Yeah.
So it's interesting. So it's I think when people think, I'm not sure you use this word. You said empowering women. Mm-hmm. So those terms often get mixed matched with in terms of women's empowerment. And I think there's a negative connotation that sometimes comes along with that. Yeah. So, but listening to that reading list, that seems really smart to me. Like it isn't, this is a dude saying this, but it's not a woo-woo list of, meditation, maybe that's in there somewhere, but like getting in touch with your personal self and all that kind of, I think you understand where I'm coming from. Yes, coming from. I don't mean to be insulting.
No, I know.
I'm just thinking when people think women's book club, unfortunately, as it comes across in cinema and other areas, it's like, I don't have anything to do with that.
I'm going to tell you something very interesting. Okay, so Brave Not Perfect was written by a woman that hated the right. It oozed out of her.
Okay. You mean politically? The political right?
Yeah, the political right. Yeah, she was definitely very leftward leaning. But the thing is she had something good to say. And I'm very conservative. It's hard for me to listen to people like that. But I trusted the system.
It was on the list.
Okay, it was on the list. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to read it. And it was a very good book. Okay, she had a lot of really good things to say. I think one of the things that she said that touched me the most is that as women, we apologize too much. We bump into somebody. Excuse me. We'll bump into somebody and we'll go, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry," or we don't do something perfect. We go, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry."
Right.
And she says, men don't do that.
She's right.
Men don't do that.
Right.
If you bump into somebody, you might go, "Dude, sorry." Where we're going, "Oh, please forgive me."
Right.
Gosh, I'm so sorry.
It hits an emotional chord. Yeah.
Right. And she was talking about how we need to stop doing that.
Interesting. Yeah, I again, so just going back to the reading list, book clubs, things like that. I think some people from the outside, that's why I wanted to ask you what you were reading, and just kind of go through the list there.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people look, they go, this sounds like work, and I don't really want to be a part of, reading things that I'm not interested in. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
But my point is like the list of things there, and it's pretty dynamic, the stuff you're talking about. And I want to say this, I think people need to read more, right? I think so encouraging folks to read more is a good thing, because you can learn something when all you're doing is feeding the algorithm the thing that, you're telling it to feed you back. That's what you're going to see. And this is a very much of a different turn.
And if we're not willing to listen to what somebody says on the other side. Why should you expect them to listen to you? Right? Exactly. And the thing is that which is going to make me circle back to where I told you that most women come to the firearms world from a position of victimhood. If we keep poo-pooing that as a society,
not acknowledge it. If
we don't say, "Oh, I get it. Okay, so the whole world has, and all of your experiences, even though you've never touched a firearm in your life, you're feeling like this is going to victimize you in some way, or you've been victimized by it, or your society has been victimized by it. How are you going to speak into that if you don't know what that is?"
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that, again, going back to the reading just in general is taking in different perspectives.
Right.
And I think we've uncovered, and you articulated a lot of those different perspectives, particularly from the perspective of a woman who's in the firearms industry, who trains, who is about helping people, and is about something that's bigger than her.
Right.
And I think if you can take anything away from this, people listening, they can take anything away from this conversation, is the value that those things bring to the larger conversation about our Second Amendment right, our freedom of speech, right, and how we're handling ourselves with regard to the decay of our country in so many different ways. And that can be measured through a ton of metrics, objectively, but also subjectively.
Right.
And the ability to have a conversation like you've been able to have with me today is open, upfront. There's candidness there. There's sharing personal stories without telling war stories, and having to prop yourself up to like, this is why you should listen to me, kind of thing. I think that is where people probably can learn the most across, again, this transcends many other things. But when we talk about our right to bear arms here in the United States, and the attack that it's been under for a long time, but it particularly is under now, particularly in the Ninth Circuit, and where we are, and all those things. I think more of the problem lies in those that believe strongly in their Second Amendment right, but have no earthly idea how to articulate the reasons why it's important, and how to get somebody else to understand why they think it's that way. It gets very emotional very quickly, and it's also often deeply rooted in a very low level of understanding of where it came from, how we got here. And when I say how we got here, like from the institution of that amendment to where we are now, and the changes that have occurred in society, but also through laws, through policies, and through, I would just say, very misinformed and uninformed conversations.
Right.
That was the point of having this conversation today, was to kind of fill some of the gaps on some of the things. I don't have a lot of ladies on the show. I haven't. It's not for lack of trying, but whenever I get pointed in the right direction, so you got to talk to so and so. When I talk to Robin, she's like, "Well, I need to put you in front of this person," because she's going to be able to have that conversation in that way. Knowing that there's folks out there that want to do that and have that conversation and do it in that kind of a way gives me hope. Because when I look at, again, I asked the question earlier, like what percentage of U.S. gun ownership is females? Those people vote. Those people have conversations.
Yes.
And to your point, they usually do a much better job of articulating things, right, from a particular position. And they certainly have the ears, right, and the eyes of a much larger group of people. And so when you talk about bringing people to the table, bringing a younger generation of of women to the table of firearms ownership, firearms training, firearms knowledge, and then instituting that into a way of life, which it is, right? It's very cool to hear that coming from here. And I guess the only thing I'm disappointed by is that I didn't know more about it before.
You're right. Yeah.
So in terms of spreading the message, and kind of just wrapping this up a little bit, if there's anything you want to leave folks with regard to yourself and their journey, and then particularly about Girl and a Gun, what would it be?
Okay. Well, the first thing that I'd like to say is that, for me, women are the most important demographic right now as far as the Second Amendment. We're not going to win this fight unless we get more women involved. And you're not going to win women over by pounding them over the head, right?
Caveman style.
Right. Or telling them that they're wrong, okay? Because no woman wants to, think about it. If you're in an argument with your wife and you tell her that she's wrong, how far is that going to go? It's not going to go well, right? So if there's some way that you can build them up or bring them to someone that can speak their language a little bit better and explain to them that this is a tool, not trauma, making device, right? Which is what they've been led to believe, right? So that's really the most important thing. And it's what I struggle with the most in the firearms community. Okay. And it's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. Because when you were asking me, what is it that we could do better, right? We are doing it better. We're doing it better. And like with Girl and a Gun in particular, we are growing by leaps and bounds. And I would say to you that we are almost at the tipping point, right? Which is, where we want to be. We want to be at that point where everybody knows about us, right? It's getting there.
Get that critical mass.
Yeah. So we're getting there. Okay. I think that anytime you get a girl club, it's especially when it's something like this, it's kind of pink and cute and everybody kind of poo-poos it and then it goes for a little while and then it fizzles out. I don't think Girl and a Gun is going to fizzle out because of the sheer power we have behind it, right? Because it's not just a girl club. We have meat. We have meat to offer you, right? And we have reasons and statistics as to why this is going to work. So that's one of the main things that I
love that.
You can't beat women over the head and you can't mansplain them into the gun community. You need to, it's like, I feel like when I talk to men, I try to talk old white guy, right? And it's because that's the gun language of men. Yeah. Kind of fuddish. Yeah. That's the gun language of men. Well, now we have to talk the gun language of women. And I think that we need to not only have our sights on women, we need to have our sights on the younger men that are just coming up, that were raised in no gun households and were educated by a anti-gun school system. Right? We need to wake them up too. And they are waking up, right? And so we need to not have guys in the gun store that when a young man comes in and he looks at a gun on the wall that's an AR-15 and he goes, is that a fully automatic gun?
Yeah,
instead of laughing at him,
right? Just
say, no, those aren't even legal. Or when they say, oh, isn't that, and they use some term that is not even a term, like a assault, is that an assault rifle? Right. No, it's not. And this is why it's not. And actually, and just explain it to them. Don't talk down to them. Don't laugh at them because they truly don't know, right? This is what they were taught at school. This is what their parents taught. This is what every movie they watched
every video game.
Right? So if we can, if I can leave people with those two things, quit trying to mansplain to women and don't laugh at the young men that are coming up because they don't know. You can't hold them responsible for things they don't know and nobody ever taught them. They were raised in an entirely different society than we were, entirely different when we weren't paying attention, and it's kind of our fault. We weren't paying attention,
and it's problematic.
Yeah.
We're seeing that now.
Yeah.
It's problematic. I think that is a solid message. And I'm really glad you brought in the young men's side of this. We didn't really talk about that. We just talked about men in general and kind of where they are, obviously, in today's society, the things they're exposed to, things they're not exposed to. The being perfect, part, I think he crosses over onto the male side of this. And the overinflated self-confidence that they can get from a lot of different things, and also just the giving up is much easier to do, you
Yeah.
know, on things that I think that it's ever been.
Yeah.
So yeah, you talk about the fight and staying in the fight and what's in the pipeline,
Yeah.
right? To continue that, like what's on your bench right now,
Yeah.
in terms of players on the field. And,
Mhm.
you know, again, we talk about old white guys. I'm kind of one of those guys.
Yeah.
I think I look at it from a different angle, but I know what you're saying.
Mhm.
I look at it from a different angle, but those are the people that are financing the fight.
Yes.
And so while you may not look at them very kindly and they may annoy you sometimes for some of the things that they say and do, they have been in the fight
Mhm.
and the fight is changing.
Mhm.
And so we need to figure that out.
Yeah. So let me speak into that.
Yeah,
So
please do.
because I'm talking to you, that's what I'm talking to you, right? When I'm talking to my women or young men and they are going, yeah, well, he made fun of me. I go, yeah, but they're the keepers of the information, right? They're the ones that went before us and have the information. And now we just need to remind them how we need to hear it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we talked earlier about how, you know, men of your age and my husband's age and, you know, most of the men that I hang out with, they were taught to take care of the women and stuff like that. Well, we don't live in that society anymore because you can't be in two places at once, right? We discussed that. So we're in a time in history where women need to know how to take care of themselves. And where we're going to get that is from the men. Yep. Right?
The young men.
But the men need to know how to teach us. And instead of poo-pooing us and poo-pooing the very young men, right? They need to learn to speak into that, right? And you can't speak into something unless you know what you're speaking into, right?
Man, that's an excellent place to wrap this up. It's super powerful. And I'll just say this. I did at the top of the hour. I cannot thank you enough for the time that you've given me, the energy that you've given me. You know, when we talked earlier, I hung up the phone. It was late on a Friday afternoon, I think, or something. I was in here by myself, and in the evening and late afternoon, I walked out and I'm like, this is going to be pretty good, right? And then we kept running into these schedule conflicts. One of them was mine. I made a massive mistake.
But I've been dying to hear about that.
Oh, yeah. So that was when I was operating. I went to a basic SWAT school in Texas, and I was operating on the notion that it was a week later than I thought it was. Got this message. I got this email reminder that your school starts on Monday. This was Saturday at like 11 a.m. of that week, and I was like, oh God. So I had to make plane changes and whatever. And that was probably middle of us having to reschedule, and then we finally made it happen. So I can't thank you enough for taking time out to come down here. I'm really grateful to be able to sit across the table from somebody that can be as articulate as you have been, and that you are, and the organization that you're a part of. I just want to say this: if there's anything that I can do to help spread the message, to help, and I mean that at every level, not just about the organization, but what you just said there about pushing the information back down the line to folks that just don't understand it and they don't know what they don't know yet, and do that in a great way. I want to be a part of that in whatever way I can.
I think that if we just all remember that the Second Amendment is for everybody, right? It's for all people.
Yeah, it might be a tough one to swallow for people. Yeah.
And so that means that even, you know, people with blue hair, right? And I think that sometimes we forget that maybe that's part of maybe they're part of our people and we don't know it.
We don't know, yeah.
Yeah. So we don't know until we start talking to them and we start learning where they came from so that we can talk into it.
Yeah. So true. So true at so many levels.
Yeah.
Look, I'm anxious to find out, you know, or continue to watch your journey, you know, and kind of and how this goes for you, particularly with your trying to find somebody to fill the Bay Area gap.
I'm dying to find.
I know a few people. Will put out the plug now for anybody listening to the show. Like if they want to, if there's somebody here that's interested in learning a little bit more and putting in an application process, or where do I go to qualify myself to be able to put
come to me.
Okay, how do they get in touch with you?
So they could call me. Okay, so that
but you don't have to put your phone number out on the internet if you don't. But if there's a
so actually, if they go to the Girl and a Gun website and so my chapter is the Gold Country chapter.
Gotcha.
And they can get a hold of me that way, and then so I would say that so long as they had their NRA or USCCA pistol trainer certificate. We could help. I'll help her get the rest of it.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's
the way.
That's the way. Yeah.
Well, if there's so we're putting the message out there now. So for anybody, they can also contact me.
Yeah.
If you're having I'll just put this out there. Like, hey, DM me if you know anybody. I'm happy to make connections.
Yeah.
Put people in touch with one another. And then if and when that starts to upstart and there's an event or something like that, please tell me. I'm happy to promote that out there in whatever way we can. And
and I'm more
if I can
than
be a
happy.
part of it, I will.
Yeah, and I'm more than happy to come and help for a while, come to the meetings and all that. I know I could commit for a couple of months. I can't commit for the rest of my life.
That's smart that you know that. Yeah, that's smart to not overcommit. I have a problem with that myself.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah, it's been there's not a lot of women out there that are willing to jump into the circle, and so I've had to really say, okay, this is as far as I can go. Yeah. Right. And that's
good that you know that. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you. So thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
I can't wait to put this out. I know a lot of people will get some value out of this, and it'll make people think a little bit differently. I know that has me for sure. And I'll walk away from this and probably stare at the ceiling tonight, reflecting. And then I always listen back. Yeah. And I'll learn things I'll learn things again or learn things in a different way, listening to it again. So I'm excited to put it out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.